Hey everyone, and welcome back to the MLG Spring Championship 2012. Is everybody ready for some more League of Legends action? All right, I am Rivington III, joined by Jad, Joshua Leesman here. Jad, how's it going?
It is going great, Rivington. I cannot wait for the next set of three. Watching my old team, Team Dignitas, take on the young team, Team Dynamic.
Yeah, this young team, formerly known as Monomaniac, coming out doing big things at IPL4, almost taking down some big names like TSM and giving CLG some hard time as well. These guys have now formulated into Team Dynamic, who has been just that, a very dynamic team. They've been playing some great things and really bringing out compositions that you usually wouldn't see.
Absolutely. That team is pretty much all under 17 years old. And some people say, you know, kids think different than everyone else. So in a lot of ways, they do things that shouldn't necessarily work. I know Nintendude in the jungle, Jungle Olaf, Jungle Riven, his two mains. You don't see those junglers from other players. Yeah,
we saw the game versus Curse EU yesterday. Team Dynamic went down in a 20-minute, about 30-second surrender. They said, no, this isn't our game. It really looked like they were going to be down on mentality. But those two games right after, they turned it around in what would have seemed for Curse to have a 20-minute surrender. And then the third game, they brought out with even more force. It was about a 30-minute one, but they did still win it handily. So that team, even if they are down and on their heels, still has momentum to come back. Now, Jat, with these recent changes, what Dignitas has seen, what can we expect from them?
They actually lost Voyboy from the top lane, and they've replaced him with Crumbs, who used to be the jungler for Curse. I think it's actually a really good replacement. Crumbs is one of the most versatile players I have ever seen. Back in IPL3, he played mid lane for Epic Gamer, took them to the finals. When he was a jungler for Curse, #1 on the NA solo queue ladder for a really long time. Now he's just transitioning once again to the top lane. He can play every role on the map, and he is an extremely good top laner already.
You know, it is ridiculous. Like last month, I believe for a few weeks, holding solo top queue in the NA league. So he's been doing very well for himself in the solo queue, making sure he's playing all around and
Crumbs plays nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. These guys have to, especially to be at this caliber play. I mean, when you were going through the professional scene, what was your regimen?
You definitely have to practice as much as you can with the team, but whenever that's not available, which is often the case for Team Dignitas because they have a lot of school and family obligations, that they just grind solo queue. They practice their mechanical skill, and then they do their team practice in scrims and such.
Right, and we see Nintendude acts there for Team Dynamic, as Jat was saying that Olaf, and as Nintendude was saying earlier, he's like, you know, Freak asked him, why Olaf in the jungle? Why not that top lane? He can soak up the experience, and he's like, dude, the only way I know how to play Olaf is he belongs in the jungle, and you max that undertow. The axe is death, and you max that. Not the E, not the true damage, you get the undertow going. So we'll see if he brings that out again. We'll have to see if once we get into picks and bans, they choose to ban Olaf, because it has been seen against Team Dynamic.
It would be a pretty smart move for Team Dignitas to ban out Nintendude in a lot of ways, since, as we said, he really mains those two champions. Also, Mono's mid player, I believe Paradoxical, is very well known for playing Ryze, Cassiopeia, and Ahri.
Right.
So there's a couple players on Team Dynamic who have small known champion rosters that if Dignitas decides to target one of them, they might be able to ban them out.
So as we look at that, you know, it was actually something we brought out. I think Paradoxical was playing a lot of Morgana in IPL4, and then we were saying, wait, he hasn't really played anything else, nobody's banning out his Morgana, and then when they did, I believe he did pick up that Ryze, and we were like, wow, Paradoxical is the real deal, he can do what he can, now named Para here, so he is going to be your mid for that Team Dynamic. Now, Jat, in the jungle, what are we seeing for both Dignitas and Dynamic?
Well, we talked about earlier, Nintendude, Olaf and Riven, very strong ganks, very good at those two players. I Will Dominate picks up a bit of a support role in the jungle. One thing he does very well is defers a lot of farm to Skara in mid lane. So you'll see Skara takes Wraiths probably more than any other AP mid, but that's because I Will Dominate adapts to it and allows him to take that camp and still spends time in the rest of his jungle. So the way he does that is he spends more time setting up ganks and trying to support his lanes since he knows his solo lanes will clear his jungle for him. So he doesn't want to lose efficiency, and he doesn't by letting Scar take that, and he can still be a positive contributor to the rest of the team.
Right. You know, it's an absolutely amazing thing to think about is just that aspect of really timing yourself and where you're going in your roles. You know, somebody asks you to go top and you're like, I want to clear a Wraith. That really takes a lot of time, and it's going to really just nix what that person wanted to do. So with that movement you were talking about, allowing the lanes to feed themselves and then help them when necessary and not be like, oh, I have to get Wraith camp first, you know, something like that. It really makes a difference because you can get those little instances over the other team when they're not doing it.
Occasionally, it can get him in trouble, and he will fall a little bit behind when he gives up too much farm, especially if they aren't winning team fights. So he does have a tendency to fall behind. But aside from that, he really just enables Skara to farm as much as he does.
Right.
And it makes Skara a much more dangerous mid player.
You know, with that, Skara actually very aggressive in his mid play, and we see him sometimes getting caught out. He will use the flash and continue to play aggressive. Is that relying on I will dominate in the jungle as well to come around, or Skara is just that in-your-face type of champion or player?
So one thing about Skara in the mid lane is he likes killing creeps and puts more focus on his CS than almost any other mid player. So oftentimes he will get himself in trouble by trying to get every single last CS. We've seen that one screenshot on Reddit, 24 minutes, 30 seconds in the game. He had 300 creep kills on Karthus, and that's just because he will go all out for every single one. And occasionally teams know what he's going to do, and they gank him as he's reaching just that inch farther for an extra CS.
And they're kind of chatting it up in lobby right now. Nintendo Dax is throwing out a little poem. He says, roses are red and violets are blue. You're going to ban Olaf because I know you. So he knows he's going to be banned out in this situation, and he's even saying it in the pregame lobby. These guys knowing each other's champion pools, chat, and that's one of the biggest things. Going into a tournament, what would you have to realize about the champion you're playing against as well as the entire team? You definitely have to do your homework. You
absolutely need to research the other team, and there's a couple ways you can approach bans. You can either try to ban out teams' individual strategies. So back in the day, COG had a very potent poke composition that you'd have to ban out things like Nidalee just so they couldn't poke you down with spears. Or you can try to find a player whose hero pool isn't that versatile and just use all your bans on those champions. So I really want to see what Dignitas does or what Dynamic does trying to ban out individuals or pools of players.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. We did see Zig doing very big things on Graves. We'll see if he picks that. Like you said, Nintendo, that Olaf and Riven, very big. Pixel's been playing very well for his team. And Zion Spartan having a bit of a rough game, which is kind of what put Dynamic behind in that first Curse game. So these guys warming themselves up. You can see the air conditioning is working quite well in the booths. I was actually worried that the computers would heat it, but these guys are ready to go. They're not that cold. You can see Nintendo's just chilling. He's like, yeah, my fingers are a little chilly, but when are they not when you're playing over and over? And it kind of you know, you mouse, 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 mouse. You're like, how is this cold?
It's the adrenaline, actually.
It is, yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety that happens. It's the fight or flight reflexes when you're in kind of battle or you're thinking very intensely about something and you're stressed before the game. All the blood just goes out of your hands and they start freezing up on you.
Yeah, it's actually something StarCraft players do, and a lot of people, you'll see these guys just jumping in single lobbies, and they'll go into lane, and they'll just click around a lot. They'll click on the minions, click off the minions, make sure they can micro and hit what they need to hit. Because if you're missing stuff, and you're actually the AD carry, and you go to click someone, and you take 2 steps more than you thought you were gonna, like, you have to back up, redo everything, and that fight just pretty much went 50% in the enemy team's direction. So if you are not warmed up, that affects the laning phase so much, or just the fight.
On that note, I remember Voyboy before tournament games used to make 1v5 bot games with Lee Sin and just run around with snowball items just so he could get his mechanical skills warmed up.
And we are jumping into Champion Select here. We are going to see that Dignitas says, no way, Nintendo, you are not getting that Olaf.
And right away, Olaf and Riven, as we were talking about the 2 main Nintendo X junglers, Dignitas targeting Nintendo X out saying, we're not letting you play your 2 best, show us what your 3rd best is.
Yep, they are going to get out both Riven and Olaf. Karthus and Urgot also banned out in this situation. These guys really trying to get those globals down here, as well as some tankiness on that Urgot. Jack's a top laner, Riven also top, but in the jungle for Nintendo, as we were saying before. And now Rise for, I believe, Paradoxical in mid.
So also we see the Karthus ban probably coming out targeted to Skara. We were talking earlier about that 300 CS game that Skara had once on Karthus. They're trying to shut down the farming. Urgot has been a ban pretty much this entire tournament. His abilities in the bottom lane are very destructive to the other AD carry.
Yeah, they really are. If you can land those Noxus corrosive tags in the beginning of that round, especially at level 1, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage. So, or not level 1, so you're not going to have it yet, but at level 2, if you are able to level, obviously, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage. It's zoning, which is huge. You can't really just get back into your lane right away. You're going to have to pump those 3 potions, which is going to give you 450 health if you're grabbing 3, and then that's going to just keep you in lane for that. But Urgot can sit back. He hasn't even done 1 potion, already building tanky to get his damage up as well, and then he just gets to that level 6 and is a really big terror for the other team. Zion Spartan going for Mundo, which could still be top, usually seen in the jungle with that fast clearing speed, and Pixel going for the support pick on Janna, very safe.
So I'm thinking that this Kog'Maw pick by Dignitas might actually be the AP mid Kog'Maw we've seen. Teams like to be very deceptive when they have first pick and try not to give anything away. So oftentimes you'll see them pick characters that can go to multiple lanes. And AP Kog'Maw versus AD Kog'Maw is an example of that. And with that being said, the Dr. Mundo is most likely for Nintendo Dex. I have seen him play Dr. Mundo. He's very common jungler, very strong in the jungle, and that is most likely what Nintendo Dex is going to be playing this game.
Right, it kind of allows him to play that, not careless play, but careless play. He can run into a fight, he can take damage, he knows it's really only going to be Ignite that's going to shut him down, so he has that free movement of Mundo does what he pleases. We do have Vladimir and Soraka coming up here. That's going to be very nice for sustain. Kind of just leave Vlad to do his own thing while Locust can focus on the rest of the team.
Dignitas loving the Soraka pick. Locust has always said, every time you ask him about characters, he says, Soraka's busted, over and over again. So not surprising that they've picked Soraka here. Vladimir could very well be a top lane or a mid lane for them. I know Crumbs plays almost everything, so that he can go anywhere with that. Graves, Janek, Ahri coming down. Paradoxical, an extremely strong Ahri. Very dynamic picks coming through.
Yeah, Ziggs again, or Zig rather I should say, picking up that Graves. We saw him do some big things just yesterday for Curse. The tower dive in a 2v1 situation where he was able to come up on the kill on TF as he ported it right into the turret. Just knowing the mechanics of Graves very well, he stood there and took the fight with about 80 HP to start off with. So it's just an amazing job, and having that knowledge allows you to really save yourself in those fights, and he did. He pushed away both champions while killing one. Beautiful job. We'll see if Zig can do it once again. And as you said, Paradoxical picking up that Ahri, one of his favorites.
So now Dignitas is left with the 4th and 5th pick. They have to be careful here because Dynamic will have the final say and be able to counterpick one of the Dignitas lanes. So that Fiddlesticks, I would be kind of surprised if they do pick Fiddlesticks. I have not seen him. I don't think Dignitas is planning on playing Fiddle. I'm a Cutie Pie always does this with the last pick. He will never have the champion he likes to pick. He'll switch to Evelynn, he'll switch to Fiddlesticks, he'll switch to everything that he wouldn't normally play. However, the Shaco could be a potential jungler for Crumbs, or actually not Crumbs, for I Will Dominate. I Will Dominate used to play a lot of Shaco back maybe about a year ago, so he still has those skills. And they're just trolling us at this point, going back and forth. They lock in Trundle, they lock in Morgana, and that's their lineup.
Very cool. So with this Trundle, obviously one of your favorite as well, what are they looking for that composition on Dignitas?
This is a very interesting composition, and it's actually going to be an AD Kog'Maw in the bottom lane. Kog'Maw Soraka, very safe. It's kind of a double AP Zerg type comp, so they can initiate with a pillar, which will allow Morgana and Vladimir to follow up and land their AoEs on larger groups. Trundle is kind of the master of positioning because of that Pillar of Filth.
Right.
It has sort of the CC level of almost an Amumu ultimate without the damage, but every 11 seconds, right? You can pop that pillar down and use it to control the map. The only thing that that's weak against are dash-type players, so it's really on Paradoxical with Ahri to be mobile enough and work around that pillar in order to get kills.
You know, that's going to be amazing. If they can do that, we'll have to see what Nintendo X has as his last pick. We do see Mundo, and we're going to see, I believe, an Akali top for Zion Spartan. Will they choose to save that in? And they do. So your top lane is going to be two champions that can sustain, but that's going to be Vladimir first before Akali gets any spell vamp.
That's a very exciting pick. I love the aggressiveness of the Akali pick. We were talking earlier about characters with dashes being able to get around Trundle, and they have picked two solo laners and an AD carry who can dash through that Trundle pillar, so they should be somewhat immune to the kite potential of Dignitas. Just looking at these lanes back and forth, Ahri versus Morgana mid is going to be a very kind of farm-centric lane. Up top lane with Vladimir against Akali could be extremely snowbally. Akali being a straight-up assassin in a lot of ways. If Akali gets ahead, look for a snowball, but if they're behind, Vladimir will crush. Yeah,
and if we look, it looks like Crumbs is going to run a heal bait Vlad. And that's very effective as well, allowing him to still pool at very low health. He can give himself that 20% he's going to lose, and it's going to be very nice for him. We are going to be cutting to a quick commercial break, but we'll have more League of Legends coming for you right after this. Dignitas versus Dynamic here at the MLG Spring Championships. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now as we move in here back to your MLG Spring Championships Day 2, one of your second best out of 3 games happening up on main stage here. We have Dynamic versus Dignitas. If you're looking for Dignitas to take this first one, let me hear you at home and in the crowd. Let me hear it for Dignitas. And we are looking at Dynamic now. Dynamic making waves, formerly known as Monomaniac. If you are looking for the young team Dynamic to bring them out into the spotlight here, let's hear it for Dynamic. Right, chat, so both teams with favorites out in the crowd. Milling about right now. We can see that it looks like Dynamic is kind of setting up in a fog of war area.
Yeah, Dynamic is just all waiting kind of in this brush. They might be looking to invade the red jungler. Scar in a very smart spot here is able to spot Dynamic placing down that ward. So I think Dignitas knows where the ward has been placed, and they can use that to their advantage with the way they move around the map.
Yeah, it's going to help knowing that it's there for Wraiths as well. They may go ahead, try to grab that out early because they will know his path as he goes around the jungle, but Trundle is pretty dependent on blue, so it looks like they're going to start there. They will be down near Wolves to help him start that camp. And it looks like everybody's going to return to their jungle for the time being. Supports definitely with the extra gold on. Both teams at 2.4, 2.5 now as the time ticks on.
These are very standard starts for the junglers. Mundo doing actually a blue start, so he's just doing the exact same start that Trundle's going to do. Getting the early pull onto the Wolves. Now they're both going to get a good pull onto the blue buff. One interesting thing to note here is Crumbs on Vladimir has picked up a 4th health potion for this lane against Akali, and Akali has matched that as well on Zion Spartan. So both of them coming to lane with boots 4 health pots instead of the standard boots 3.
Yeah, very nice job there. Great thinking by both. Great minds think alike. So they will be able to sustain for that extra 150 HP in lane. We do see Skara now returning with Paradoxical, if you will, in lane. Top lane damage, a quick transfusion onto Zion, just seeing how much damage he's getting down, kind of basing everything off that. Cutie Pie, a little bit of early aggression from Zig. Now, between a Graves and a Kog'Maw, which is going to win that early lane?
So a lot of Graves' strength comes in his early ability to harass, and Kog'Maw is actually fairly weak until he gets some levels in that Bio-Arcane Barrage, because it has a lot of downtime when he's in the lane. So once Ziggs get a couple of levels and he gets the smoke screen and the quick draw so he can dash in Kog'Maw's face, they're going to be bullying. As you see that right now, he gets the Janet shield, puts some damage on a Cutie Pie, and he just cannot return. So Kog'Maw has to play very passive in this early laning phase until he can power up and get that Bio-Arcane Barrage leveled.
They do have pings coming out. They saw Trundle go down for red, but you see that ping just around the upper dragon area. They think he is in and trying to head in towards behind Ahri. You can see Ahri now hugging the top side of that mid lane because he thinks that Trundle is down below him.
So I just want to point out all of the early wards that have been placed down by both teams. They're very paranoid in a lot of ways about counter jungling and knowing where the other jungler is early. As you see, both teams actually warded the enemy Wraith Brush, so when the junglers ran through those areas, the entire team knew exactly where they were. Very good ward placement, and really the junglers didn't do anything to avoid it. They just ended up full clearing their jungle anyway.
Yep, and now that ward at Wraiths gives them a ping. They now know where Trundle is. This makes it really easy for bottom and top lane to show the aggression they're showing right now. We can see it way more from bottom. They're actually almost under the turret right now. A pretty good wave, and a lot of pings going all over. He says, I'm invading.
So they saw Trundle at the Wraith Brush there, and now they're going to collide in at the Wolves. Trundle scouting with his pillar. He knows something's up, and Mundo's actually just going to walk away, maybe try a gank top. But he is going to whiff there because Crumbs is going right back, and he has no idea.
Yeah, Crumbs holding that back. You'll see them backing in lane. You're like, you know, they may stop or may not. Sometimes that champion wants to stay, but they're going to go ahead and back in that position. They're all right to, and they'll be out of there if they're going to get ganked. So that time they're backing. Sometimes they will stop it. Sometimes they won't.
Yeah, and Mundo just spending so much time in that brush. Zion Spartan was freezing the lane at that part, thinking Vladimir was going to want to sneak up for CS, but he had been shopping the whole time, and Nintendo is just leaving. He's probably going to end up leaving as soon as Vladimir gets back.
Yep, we're going to see here. He is actually, you know what? Dynamic did this before where they just crept the lane, and he is going to see right there. Crumbs is going to be close on this. It's going to be a cleaver to the face as he enters the bush, and a great job by Nintendo. He gave Crumbs 3 more steps into the bush before he initiated. And we're going to see Crumbs does get away from that one with his pool very well. We did shoot towards bottom. A lot of aggression here. Trundle coming in. Dominate throws the pillar, forces the flash onto Pixel. And the W not up for Kog'Maw. We do see that Morgana coming down here from the top of mid, just hanging out in the wing. Scar coming out, going for it. Misses one with just a dash. Zig doing a very great job at Pixel, missing it on the coattails of Janna's dress there. And they are going to make it out of that one alive. 0-0, 5 minutes in the game. A lot of aggression from both teams. I'm surprised we have not seen a kill yet.
There's a lot of patience up top from Mundo, and it ended up paying off fairly well. He did manage to burn that flash off of Crumbs. And then bottom lane, I'd have to say I Will Dominate's gank was a lot more effective because it burned a summoner spell, but he also didn't have to wait a minute in a brush just to get it. Then obviously the Morgana coming down from middle lane, giving actually Dynamic a bit of a gold advantage, right? He was roaming so long in middle lane that Paradoxical was able to get ahead of him on CS, 39-28, and also Graves is winning that early lane against Cog. So a quick 600 gold advantage opened up here by Team Dynamic.
And again, playing aggressive once more. I don't believe they actually see Trundle coming up behind them, so they are a little out of their league on this one. Zig is going to be heading back, and they do see the Contaminate. It will be onto Zig. He's running the wrong way, though, trying to get out of that Void Ooze. The pillar goes down. I do not believe he has his quick drop, but he is going to be able to walk out of that one with a little bit of vision from the pillar, but not enough range for damage.
He actually came incredibly close to killing I'm a Cutie Pie there, and that gank might have worked if I'm a Cutie Pie had enough health to support. Essentially, all that was Kog'Maw being nearly dead and then Trundle chasing in after two people. And Soraka is actually a very poor support to gank for because she can do very little to slow or aid the gank.
Oh, wow. I'd like to point out, you see that Nintendo did see that Trundle was bottom. Crumbs comes in to say, hey, I think somebody might be in here, but they actually pass right by each other unknowingly. He sees that that one is gone, and he's probably thinking, I probably walked right by him.
Really sneaky play by Nintendo there, using the walls to his advantage. He knew how Vladimir was going to be coming down through that choke, knew he wanted to go back to base, and just decided to just chill out in that pathway and just go back.
So we have Ahri and Mundo returning back to the field. We have Ahri has now a 1-tomb, actually. She went for, or 1-tome rather. She got more potions and ward, so it's going to be a Kali up top. Going to go for that quick revolver. We do have some purchases around. The 2 Dorans on Graves and Kog'Maw are going to keep them both nice and tanky. As we saw before in one of the games I heard you mention, you know, they went straight for the BF, a very scary thing to do, especially if your opponent is going for those Dorans.
So obviously both of them here just going double Dorans. Graves is a very tanky type of AD carry, so he wants some health to go with his innate resistances. We actually see both mids getting the blue buff. They're just going to come mid and maybe both farm. Very passive game so far, with Team Dynamic actually just out-farming Dignitas thus far. Yeah,
and something to point out in this bottom lane, they have similar builds now, but I like to recognize Kog'Maw as, you know, he's one of my favorite AD carries here in mid. We do have a Dark Binding going down on Para, but he gets out. And as I was saying, Kog'Maw is a very low-cost champion. You see that Zeal build on him a lot because it is very effective. And once he hits 6, he can hit you with 2 abilities at once. He's got his auto-attack W going, as well as the ultimate. So you can usually out-damage somebody even if you don't have the AD they do.
So while Kog'Maw is behind by about 13 CS and getting harassed down very heavily by Zig on Graves, that's not going to last forever. Once Kog'Maw, as you say, gets his ultimate, his trading potential goes up incredibly because there's a small cast time on that ultimate and he can auto-attack in between it. So his damage potential goes up substantially level 6, even if his items are a little behind.
Yep, we see Morgana moving around now. She went bottom for the gank. Look at these great wards. 1 ward here from Dynamic and another ward here. So they just had full vision of Morgana moving around. They now know that there's 2 at the Wraiths. And as I said before, this gives them a lot of comfortability on the map. They know where everyone is.
Top here.
That top is getting dove, and there's the comfortability right there. Crumbs does have the Ignite on and Exhausted. I don't think the Exhaust was quite needed. It did, however, it probably saved Zion Spartan, actually. So a good Exhaust right there.
So something we actually weren't picking up on is Zion had a 2-level advantage on Crumbs. Thanks to those early Mundo ganks where he sat in the bush, forced him to go back and waited there, he fell extremely far behind. Zion had that lane frozen for a while, and wow, they're jumping back in against Trundle. And he just has a huge lead on Vladimir right now. That's where most of the gold differential is coming in.
Yeah, it's going to be very big. If you can't be as Vlad and keep your skills up, you're not going to be able to sustain as well.
We have a
damage coming out. Ahri goes in with the charm. It goes and splits the defense there. She is able to get a kill there with Foxfire. Actually, Pixel picking that one up with a Zephyr attack, as a Cathian Surprise does not do any damage to the 3 Dynamic members remaining at the bottom.
A really great roam there by Ahri. There was a bunch of action going up top, so Dignitas was potentially distracted. Didn't realize Ahri had left the mid lane, snuck in. They were harassing Kog'Maw down so low and just really close, slick play by Paradoxical there, dashing into the tower and flashing away with a sliver of health.
Yeah, it was a great job, as well as knowing what the mechanics could happen with his team there. They said, yeah, we can micro each other in and out to take this turret damage. Whoops, I got to dash out, you know. Knowing how much health he could take, it really helps him. He stays alive, back to his lane, back to soak up that experience, which Paradoxical, or Skara rather, has been doing right now. A beautiful Dark Binding, kind of shredding that magic resistance with some Tormented Soil. You see top, Zion going, Crumbs going for the quick pull. Zion going in with the burst. Crumbs cannot pull again and absolutely exploded down with some front end damage there. And Zion Spartan will be happy to soon create that Hex Tech Revolver.
Dignitas has to be very, very careful here. Dynamic has a very assassin-y burst-heavy comp, and when two assassins start snowballing ahead, it can crush a game extremely fast. If they don't slow down Akali is going to wreck them. Yeah, and actually looking, I didn't even realize when Akali went back, she already got the revolver, already got the pickaxe, so she's ready for the gunblade right soon. We'll see how much gold she has right now. 604, not quite there. But it's just a comparison, right? Vladimir still hasn't even finished his Hextech Revolver, and Akali's 2 kills up, over double the CS, and even now Dynamic is taking a 3-man Dragon. Yeah, they're going to be taking that, a 6-minute spawn on Dragon, so we'll see that about 17 minutes and 15 seconds. A very nice job by them. Global Gold and experience, and they will have control over that. Now, with all the wards they have, I'm just going to go ahead and do some vision here. This is the vision right now of Dignitas. They have 1 ward over here at Baron and 1 down in the Tri-Bush. This is your vision for Dynamic. All over the bottom, there are 4 wards right here, another one by Wraith. We have Scar getting taken down, a little bit of damage in the middle. Soul Shackle goes off, and we are going to see Para dashing out of that one, but you can see the vision, as I was talking about, up towards Baron as well. Dynamic Zig down bottom, and this is where that ultimate comes out. We were talking about Jat. We can see Zig saying, hey, I was taking a lot of damage there, but they were trading somewhat equally. Now with Soraka to give armor, they could start to win that fight. I have to say, though, both Dynamic solo laners are being complete and total bullies. We saw Ari dashing in on Morgana, making Scar blow the ultimate because he had to get Paradoxical off of him, and then he just dashed away, outbreaking the ultimate chain. The tower already falling for Zion Spartan top lane. Dignitas is in big, big trouble here. They're already down 5,000 gold, only 12 minutes in. Yeah, and the 3 kills on this team, 2 are to Akali, and that's not somebody you want, especially with a carry like I'm a Cutie Pie on Kog'Maw. Very squishy. Akali jumping on Graves, not as bad. He can dash out of there, but Akali is going to be able to stick to I'm a Cutie Pie and do a huge amount of burst damage because he does not have that passive armor magic resist that Graves has. So he's going to have to be very careful, rely on Soraka in these fights. So now that Akali has destroyed that top lane and is free to roam, like you said, Dignitas not in a good position. Dominate actually coming in bottom here for a bit of a gank. Good slow. They are going to be going after this one. The Ooze is down. He cannot get the length on the pillar, and Contaminate was used just a little too early. Didn't give enough movement speed towards the middle and past the river. A good try there, and he's going to be forced back into the jungle. It looks like he may babysit for a second and try to creep up through the bush. I have to say, I feel a little sorry for I Will Dominate this game. He has been trapped having to babysit lanes that are either losing or have been ganked. He's just a little bit behind the curve as far as ganks go. He's had to sit top and get CS while Crumbs has been dead. He has to sit mid and get CS while Scars went back to base. And because of that, Nintendo has been roaming around the map, getting more successful ganks off, and even counter-jungling him. Here we are trying to clear this wave out. Graves still trying to do damage even under the turret. Poking. Akali comes from behind, and this is exactly what they want. He was only going to be able to get a slow with that smoke down, but it did not hit anybody, taking 2 shots to the face there. He didn't mind. Nice stop on I'm a Cutie Pie. If they were actually chasing that down, that would have been a for sure kill. And he's still in the bush. Akali is going to come there. See the burst damage, about 200 health per hit. She is in her shroud, but that is vision for them, and she is going to be forced to run out of this one. The Shroud is not going to be useful for her. 3 members, now 4 members as Nintendo comes bottom. And we are going to see Para and Skara duking it out. It looks like Skara actually getting duked on here, and the Ignite will be on. The shield's not going to help. Akali jumps in to finish it off, cleaning it up, looking for a double kill. Another dash to end the assassination, and that is exactly what Akali excels at. Quickly getting in, quickly getting out, and making it look like nobody was ever there. So we have extremely aggressive play here by Team Dynamic. All 5 members have been down at that part of the map for quite a while. To counter that, Dignitas tried to push top with Vladimir and counter jungle with I Will Dominate. While they did get the red buff, at what cost? They've lost 2 characters, and they might lose a tower, maybe even exposing that inhibitor only 14 minutes into the game. So Dynamic doing an amazing job, pushing extremely hard, turning that snowball into towers and gold.
Yeah, they've been doing a very great job, and now that Akali has destroyed her lane, we said before, the roaming she's doing is really messing with the mentality and the gameplay composition that Dignitas is bringing to the table here. A good amount of damage, however, they're able to shut it down. There's the pillar, Soul Shackles go down, Nintendude will fall there. A double kill from the Soul Shackle ultimate of Morgana. A beautiful job by Skara there, and they will leave it at that, saying, we like the pickup. Let's go ahead and regroup. We'll get some more items. A good amount of money just picked up by Skara there. He did grab almost 2,000 gold after just coming back out of his base. I'm sure he had about 800, 900 before those pickups. And the kills and assists he just picked up.
That was definitely a case of Dynamic overstaying their welcome. They knew they got the super early exposed inhibitor, but they didn't realize that all of Dignitas had came back to base and that they were going to engage on them. The Trundle Pillar is really what sold that fight for Team Dignitas. The dashes of Ahri were down because their ultimate had been down from the fight previously, and they're able to just chase in. And oh man, Ahri gets caught out of position by a beautiful Dark Binding.
Yeah, that was just right on the tail of Ahri. She did not see it coming in, couldn't dash out of the way. Her ultimate was down. Zion says, I would like to go in, but it does not look like they have the upper hand in numbers here. 15 minutes now, 16 minutes in, 5-3. It looks like Dignitas is trying to increase that number, but again, thwarted. Zig just throwing out a quick buckshot, and everybody says, we don't want to get hit with that. That's bad news.
So even though they're only up 5 kills to 3, the gold is almost 7,000 because they've killed 4 towers and taken that dragon. So it's really just the global gold across the board, concentrated especially on Akali, that's making this lead so huge.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. We see that Zig and Pixel now kind of hanging out in front of the turret, trying to shut down any movement for Dignitas here. They're saying, yeah, we're playing really good. There's no reason we should get lackadaisical here. Relaxing it all. No being complacent. These guys are going to continue to push these lanes. Top lane ready to be taken down as well. So once they figure out what they want to do here in mid, they can either just push down to the second turret and head over right through this area of the Wolves onto that top turret. We can see that Dignitas now is going to have to pull back for that too.
Dynamic is probably trying to group up, hold their advantage. They know that their double assassin comp, if Trundle and the tank line can get too big, they will fall off. So that's why they're pressing this advantage so super aggressively. They're grouping up as 5. If Dignitas were to try to defend towers at this point, Ahri and Akali would just fly through the tower and just try to tower dive and assassinate everyone. And Dignitas knows this, so they're having a really hard time defending these towers.
Here we go as they go in for a bit of an attack here. Graves the last one. Ahri still looking to do some damage as Paradoxical put out his Foxfire. Nobody got in range for it though. Moving out with the minion wave here, we got Dignitas Cavalry up mid. Zion Spartan being found. Pillar goes out, so they know he's going the other way. He is forced out of that shroud, and it's going to be Para to charm in. So much damage from Foxfire coming out. The Soul Shackle breaks on 3, but still gets 2, and Nintendude and Zig stunned up. The crowd control has already been used, and it's all about the damage per second now. Shut down. Skara goes down. Nintendude will also fall, and Zion Spartan will not be a help in this fight. We do see that Vladimir Crumbs has just gone down to the hands of Ahri, Graves, and Janna. So a lot of good kills going in both sides here, 2-2, but were the assists better in favor of Dynamic?
That fight is definitely in the favor of Dignitas. They had a huge gold disadvantage going into that fight, and the Morgana and Vladimir ult landed on the entire Team Dynamic team. The focal point of that team fight was right in that entirely tiny choke between the Wraiths and the River, so they got the ultimates on everybody, and the fact that they were so far behind and still took everyone on Team Dynamic very low bodes very well for the future of Dignitas' team fighting.
Yeah, this is going to be great for them. Their positioning there was good. They had really good focus. And like you said, it's really going to pay off in these next team fights because they're just going to want to do it again. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Picking up a little bit more gold there. Very nice job. Closing the gap now to about 6,000 or 6,500 gold. Morgana picking up her own blue. She's going to be able to do that. Skara with full mana anyways, actually pulling off of this one.
So that was an example of a fight that Dynamic can't take. They need to have their assassins flank around and get onto the Dignitas squishies, because if their assassins, the assassins being Akali and Ahri, are with the rest of the team, then they're just going to get hit by all the AoE.
Jumped on here. The steal from Zion Spartan, and Skara's not going to be able to do anything about that. A beautiful ward there, and Skara taking a little longer than usual to take it out. He walked it away and then brought it back, kind of milling about. Cost him that and his life.
So that's the type of play Dynamic needs to do. They need to roam around. They need to catch people out of position, and they need access to those squishies. Because of that pick, they're now going to be able to pick up a 19-minute Baron. Dignitas wants no part of this. They're just going to concede, and from here, it'll be very interesting to see how well Dynamic can push down those mid-towers and just try to finish off Dignitas.
Yeah, we're going to see as they move around now. We should see that Oracles of Nintendo coming in very handy as they start to clear these, sweep the wards on the map, and just gain even more control. Nintendo doing what, there it is, clearing one ward, making sure Wraiths aren't there. They're trying to deny all the experience and any minions they can right now to Dignitas. They know they have the upper hand. They know Dignitas is on their heels. Akali with that finished Gunblade. We're also going to have Izonia's on Skara, so a lot of complete items for both teams. The Infinity Edge on Graves. Kog'Maw did not go for the Zeal. He only has that BF sword and the pickaxe. So that damage is definitely in the favor of Dynamic in these next fights.
So I'm looking for Dynamic here to just 5-man push down another lane. They might try to split push, but I'm expecting them to push with all. The only way Dignitas can get these fights is if somehow they land the Vladimir ult before the Morgana ult on the majority of Team Dynamic. If they can't land those ultimates on pretty much the whole team, the Assassins will just snowball through the team and probably clean them up. So Dignitas has to be very careful how they engage this next fight, and Dynamic is definitely in the driver's seat at this point.
Pixel down bottom, farming away, doing a very great job. He's trying to get himself
money.
Support money right there. You got to get it. He's going to be able to come into the team with some huge items after that. Obviously, Janna, one of the best farmers. It's
actually really funny because of all the global objectives, Janna has more gold than I'm a Cutie Pie does on Kog'Maw.
That's not how you want it to happen. And a beautiful ultimate coming out of the hands of Zig. He just slows that one down. They got the Contaminate down if they needed for Trundle to get in there with help, but Zig knew he had the distance. Trundle wasn't getting there in time, and he just said, hey, here's a buckshot and an ultimate, not a warning shot. Have it. 9-5, 21 minutes into the game. We've kind of crested into mid-game here, but Dynamic really turned this into their own mid-game very early by destroying the laning phase, taking out the turrets, and having that top Akali Zion Spartan run around free roam.
And there's this exposed inhibitor from only 14 minutes in that appears they're finally going to come down here and finish it off. From there, they're just going to roam around and potentially take another tower. Very smart here, not trying to take another base towers when they know one has already fallen.
Yeah, the fight comes in. They are going to try and get this on. Monsoon comes down for Janna, spreading out the team. Looks like everybody might make it out of Soul Shackles as Zonia is used by Skara. He will get bursted down. Now Locust finds himself taking pain as well. Crumbs gets out by the skin of his teeth. The transfusion does not keep him alive. Cutie Pie just getting out as well with a handful of HP. The triple kill for Graves, and like I said, Zig's power with that Infinity Edge is just going to topple down on Dignitas in these teams fight.
So they have the Baron here. They are 3 up against 2. It looks like they're trying to get one base tower. I don't feel like they're going to be able to finish this. The creeps are falling very soon. So they got inhibitor. They got a base tower. That was an okay fight for Dignitas, all things considered. They are still surviving in this game, but man, they were very close to getting completely wiped out there.
Yeah, they definitely had to hightail it out, keep themselves at least a little bit alive due to the fact that there wasn't a minion wave coming down. So they said, even if we can't get the back to base for full health, we can still kind of put ourselves out there as a meat shield, blow their cooldowns, take their auto attacks, keep that damage off our turrets.
I just want to mention one thing about how far ahead Team Dynamic actually is. If you look at the item builds and just look at the amount of completed items on Team Dynamic, Akali with a Gunblade and a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, Graves with his full Infinity Edge, Ahri with that Rylai's, and then you move that over to Team Dignitas, Scar is really the only one to complete a full big item. Vlad only has to build the Ancients, and I'm a Cutie Pie and Kog'Maw has not even finished an Infinity Edge, so they are just leaps and bounds behind Team Dynamic at this point, and that's why they're getting pushed around so much.
Yeah, you really have to have positioning for Kog'Maw, and he can stay in the back. That's great, but if he's not doing damage, he has to get in there to use his W more, and that's what's going to get him taken down. There's a lot of what you said before, a lot of that dashing, a lot of the jumping. Ahri, Graves, and Akali can all just jump right on him and shut him down. So this is getting pretty scary, and Team Dynamic has picked a beautiful composition for this game.
Right, and if Dignitas wasn't so far behind, they'd have a perfect counter composition. The Morgana ult would be devastating, preventing the dive onto I'm a Cutie Pie, but he's just not farmed enough. He's not doing enough damage to peel, and it's why their backline is just melting to the Assassins of Team Dynamic.
So at this time, what is going through Dignitas' head? It's obviously Turtle. Do they contest the next Baron? They got to wait for these inhibitors to come back up. What's going on for them right now?
They need to turtle at these inner base towers. They need to hope Team Dynamic dives into Morgana and Vlad ults, and they need to hope they land the AoE on the right people. And then they also need to hope miraculously I'm a Cutie Pie doesn't get assassinated.
Sounds easy enough. Let's see if they can make it happen. 25 minutes into the game, just about that mark. Para gets slowed down there, but Ahri not really too worried about this. Does have that ultimate, goes for Foxfire to just kind of say, yeah, I got some damage output still. I have a lot of mana, I'm not one to be messed with. And they can see the rest of Dynamic milling about here. Now, when somebody's at the front of your base like this, it makes it very difficult. They can roam from turret to turret, wave to wave. We can see a very nice minion wave coming in bottom, so that gives them a little bit of control over top here. They're focusing, again, denying that experience in the jungle. Janna now with that Oracle, so they're going to sweep as well.
Team Dynamic actually taking their time here. They're clearing out Dignitas' jungle. They've been split pushing a little bit. It looks like they might be able to take down this tower. And wow, that binding just flying through, and here's a fight.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be the Zhonya's down. They all break the Soul Shackle. We'll have to see what goes down. Crumb's taking a lot of damage. It's now onto Locust. Locust burnt down Zion, using one of his ultimates on that. Now stunned up by the Dark Binding. Goes back for Trundle. 1-2. Going for the third. No, Graves finds that one onto Kog'Maw. The Acathian surprise not going to land, but they do have Kog'Maw, Dark Binding, and the Shroud. He's just going to kind of hang out there for a second. Coming around to help. Got the Zephyr onto Morgana to slow, and it looks like they may be able to open up the Nexus for damage here, and they will have 20 seconds to do this. The Dark Binding, Zion may go down, the shield will keep him alive, the Monsoon, and everybody's going to be able to keep it alive to do damage. Game 1 going to Dynamic.
A great last fight there by Team Dynamic. Dignitas didn't quite initiate before the tower went down, so instead of fighting on their tower with the AoE, they had no protection inside their base, and that just let them get rolled through by Zion Spartans. Amazing 7-2 Akali.
Yeah, that was a very great job, and like I said, Zion Spartan having kind of a day for himself yesterday where he kind of had to get himself together. He went 0-4 top against an Aurelia. Then the next games against that Curse team, he was able to pull out wins. So bringing that into today, he has so much momentum with his team. Nintendude playing well. They were all roaming very early. They went for that composition. We've seen a lot of that lately this weekend too, is aggression towards one tower and allow that lane to do some work. It's not like let's take on the front three as fast as possible. Let's take down one, make the other team do what we want, and we'll start the fights.
A lot of that game revolved around Akali just getting ahead of Vladimir. When Nintendude X walked up into that top rush with Vladimir and just waited there for 2 minutes, that was actually worth it because it snowballed the Akali so far ahead that it just allowed them to take control of the rest of the map.
And it even took them a little time to get back to lane. So we were even like, Mundo, completely wasting experience, not doing it. And then we're like, wait. No, the gank could work, and he didn't get the kill, but like you said, it forced him out of lane. And one of the biggest objectives, early game, mid game, any time of the game, is you want to be soaking up experience. If you can deny your enemy that, then you are good to go.
So yeah, that was just such a strong opening showing by Team Dynamic. The very young team coming out extremely strong in their first round, and I really want to see how Dignitas reacts to this in Game 2.
Yeah, we're going to have that for you in just a few seconds. Rivington third here with Jat, bringing you these matches after we come back.